Nikolai Ivanovich Pirogov is known as an outstanding Russian surgeon, author of many innovations in surgery, treatment, science, and education. Curious and irrepressible nature demanded from Nikolai to achieve perfection in everything. Contemporaries recall that the young Pirogov was not enough student practice with surgical instruments in the anatomical theater. He himself devised exercises in which he practiced the accuracy and rapidity of manipulations with surgical instruments. Later, when he became a certified physician, M.D., and then professor, he radically improved the surgical techniques and instruments used at the time. His explorations often aroused the rejection of medical luminaries, but Pirogov did not stop it. He was primarily interested in the effectiveness of treatment and teaching. In this he saw the guarantee of preservation of health and lives of patients. Nikolai Ivanovich tested his findings in real life, going to the army in the Caucasus. There he tested for the first time, dressing with starchy bandages instead of using bows. Ether anesthesia during operations. At the same time he invented a simple device for immersing the patient in sleep. With the beginning of the Crimean War, Pirogov left teaching and went to the besieged Sevastopol. Already on the way to the city, a depressing picture opened his eyes. The whole road was jammed with various wagons. Wagons, gun carts, carts with the wounded, everything was mixed up in a nightmarish branch of the inferno. The noise of rain and impassable mud, moans and cries of the wounded and dying, the stench of inflamed wounds and streams of pus shook Pirogov to his core. For 10 days Pirogov did not eat, drink or sleep. For 10 days in a row he treats the unfortunate soldiers. The surgeon never left the operating rooms, saving the worst of the wounded. But then he willfully switches to administration, realizing that by defeating the mess, he will save more lives than with a scalpel in his hands. Nikolai Ivanovich decisively puts an end to the previous haphazard approach to medicine, when the surgeon would take on the first patient he could find. At the same time he established an almost army order among the first nurses of mercy in Russia. Pirogov personally introduced the principle of sorting the incoming wounded. Initially he himself, later trained and experienced surgeons, examined the incoming wounded, sorting them according to the severity of the wounds. The hopeless and mortally wounded were immediately separated. They were attended to by nurses of mercy, easing the last moments of the wounded. The severely wounded were sent at once to surgery. Those with moderate wounds were treated and sent to hospitals. The light wounded received help on the spot. Nikolai Ivanovich also introduced a specialization among the nurses of mercy. Dressers assist the doctor in manipulations. Pharmacists deal with medicinal drugs, their preparation, storage and distribution to the sick. Housekeepers serve patients and staff, ensure cleanliness of the rooms and patients. Transport nurses accompany the wounded to hospitals. All doctors and nurses received white gowns and aprons, which were changed for clean ones as needed. Decontamination of hands and wounds began to be applied. The experience of mass application of starch bandages showed that they did not reliably fix the injured limbs. Pirogov invented and introduced plaster bandages, which were deprived of the drawbacks of Lubke and starch bandages. In order to reduce losses from shock and to perform complicated operations, Pirogov was the first in the world to widely use ether anesthesia. Before Pirogov appeared in Sevastopol, doctors had performed about 400 amputations. Nikolai Ivanovich made such operations more than 5,000. However, even with his fantastic at the time technique and speed of doctors were still not enough. Then he applied the method of sequential processing. Today it is called the conveyor method. At that time, it was not even a word. Each surgeon performed a strictly defined function. He cut, extracted splinters or bullets, dissected the affected tissues, stitched wounds. Such an approach accelerated the speed of treating the wounded many times over. The mortality rate of the wounded in the city gradually dropped dramatically. Moreover, Pirogov sought to use saving methods of treatment. Therefore many of the wounded did not become invalids, but returned to the ranks. Soldiers in the besieged city literally prayed for the miracle worker healer. For his health in churches of Sevastopol put candles. Many believed that Pirogov would resurrect the dead. There was a case where soldiers brought to the surgeon his comrade, whose head was torn off by a British ball. Despite the thousands of enemy shells that killed citizens daily, Sevastopol lived and resisted, and the inhabitants busily collected British cannonballs and took them to the Russian batteries, in order to return these presents to the donators. The situation on the internal front was much worse. On the bureaucratic front, all of Pirogov's endeavors were brought to life thanks to the personal participation of Grand Duchess Elena Pavlovna. Officials ignored the efforts of the surgeon. All his innovations were met with hostility. The rotten bureaucratic machine of autocracy, corroded by bribery and embezzlement, did not want to work according to the laws of wartime. All orders of Russia's top leadership to improve medical care were either ignored, or carried out with the sleeves. For example, officials reported to the top that a government building had been put in order as a hospital. In reality, the funds allocated for repairs were stolen. As a result, when Pirogov tried to transfer 500 wounded to the hospital, the deception was revealed. The patients had to be placed in tents in a hurry, because of which many lost health, fell ill and died. Once again, Nikolai Ivanovich had to literally, with the grace of God, donations from benefactors, and selfless help of townspeople to repair the hospital and establish hospital facilities, fighting gangrene, mud, pus, and mess. Russia lost the war, but it was not Russia, but the unscrupulous bureaucrats, who left the country without modern weapons, army, navy, and medicine. And the people with their heroism had to overcome all this. As a result of the war, at Pirogov's suggestion, military field surgery was born in Russia, which allowed to drastically reduce losses in manpower. As a result of the Crimean War, Pirogov was awarded the Order of St. Stanislav, First Class. The emperor himself wished to speak to the great surgeon. However, Nikolai Ivanovich did not ask for favors in his conversation with himself. The autocrat did not hear the usual flattery. He was told the truth about the terrible situation in the army, and the fact that Russia has lost, and not been defeated, only thanks to the courage of ordinary men in overcoats, who fought against everything, including the betrayal of their own intendants and officials. The hero was rewarded with a pension for life and various positions, from which he was soon released. He was too uncomfortable an official, could not and did not want to learn the high art of fawning over his superiors. In his estate, Pirogov organized a free clinic, where he worked until the end of his days and disappeared without a trace. Only sometimes the surgeon got out of the wilderness to travel abroad or give lectures. He also made visits to hospitals in the rear during the Franco-Prussian and Russian-Turkish wars. To be, not to seem, a motto that every citizen who loves his homeland should carry in his heart. To serve the truth in both the scientific and moral sense of the word.